Hey folks, and welcome to the 5th Double Feature Horror Show. Hope you're all doing well this week. This week we are aiming to discuss the regular topic, which is going to be how horror works in the serial format, sort of the pluses and the pros and cons of that and issues with that format. The problem with that is I really want to talk about the Haunting of Bly Manor. I'm kind of just desperate to talk about the Haunting of Bly Manor all stream. I'm going to have to fight this instinct. But luckily, helping me with this are returning guests Haryan Gláeddyv and Teabag.
What up, my drillers?
Hello there. Wait, that's mine.
Drills are spreading. Oh my gosh. Oh dear. Oh dear. I want to give a special thanks to everyone who managed to do the horror homework for this week. Obviously, setting you the task of watching a series is a fair bit more than I usually ask for. Chat, did you manage it? Did you manage to see Bly Manor already? Because we are going to go full spoilers here. I'm hoping chat's going to give me the yeses. They've seen it. They rewatched it. They watched it for this, or they have rewatched it. And Haryan and Teabag, it was the first time for both of you, right?
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. I think
Nice.
you watched it in like a day. I watched it in about 3.
Yeah.
Did you actually watch it in a day?
I watched it all in a day. Yeah. I won't say how, but let's just say I did.
You didn't go to work.
No. I worked.
Yeah. Okay.
World's
I'm a
longest toilet break at work. Going in there with the iPhone and a battery pack.
I'm very well. That's if I was going into work. That's the thing, because good old certain global event happening has prevented me from going in for the last year.
Aren't you lucky?
Wow.
It's been the same for me, to be fair.
Yeah.
And what else are we going to do but sit home analysing horror? I mean,
Exactly.
being really productive, really productive. So it's an interesting one in talking about the topic. I'm going to try and stay on format here, but they obviously gel quite nicely because we are seeing sort of a new thing in horror here. It is very new that we have horror serials and not just horror series. Now, they have happened before. We've had any number of spooky things. I know the audience are not all Zoomers. Some of you are going to know the Twilight Zone. You are going to know the Outer Limits. Tales from the Dark Side. Ringing any bells with people, hopefully?
I know Twilight Zone mainly because of Futurama. With the scary door.
Very good indeed.
William Shatner was very good in his episode.
Yeah, Terror at 3,000 feet. I want to get on your good side because there is a film that's basically how can I say? It's like a mashup of that episode, the William Shatner Gremlin on the Wing episode, and the Mia Jovovich Resident Evil films.
Okay.
It's very special. It's very special. I think it's called In the Clouds. I'm not going to try and look it up now, but I feel we may have to cover this because the trailer alone is very special indeed. But no, we've got kind of a new thing here. I think it's kind of a new thing. I've not seen much in the way of sort of prior examples of this. So horror serials where you've got this sort of one extended narrative. You kind of have Twin Peaks, but really, I think we've got to talk really sort of The Walking Dead. We've got to talk The Haunting of Hill House. We've got to talk about, of course, American Horror Story, where they've tried to take horror and just do a scary story over a whole season. Now, Haryan, I know you've seen a fair bit of American Horror Story.
Yes.
How do you think that did in terms of keeping things scary over the long term?
Keeping it scary. It depends on the season, really. I especially remember Asylum, the second season. It kind of climaxes early with some of the story threads. Then some of it do it around the right time, and then I remember the last 3 episodes being quite boring. So, I mean, I guess you could call that my take on it. But and I know there's like Freak Show. I remember being a bit all over the place with the scares. I mean, depends what you mean by it. Story beats, at least I'll call them. Not all of them are necessarily scares. Like I can't remember the character's name, but the one with the lobster hands getting his hands cut off. I think that happens right at the last episode. And it's supposed to be this like massive thing, and then he kind of lives happily ever after, and there's nothing really. It's kind of built up this whole time that it's like, oh, he's going to lose a part of himself, and then you don't even really see it. You just see him with his wooden hands, and it's. I just remember it being a bit odd.
I absolutely love that we get that show from the same guy who gave us Glee and Nick Up.
Yeah, that's true actually.
Hey chat, hey Empire 2.0, how's everyone doing here?
Shout out to Charity. How you doing? Beyond the Pale?
Charity Rivers. Oh.
Empire, Jan, everyone.
Mr. Gently Benevolent, friends of the show.
I shielded this last night on my CSI Deadly Intentions stream. But if you get the chance, check out Beyond the Pale's latest video about Fred and Rose West. It's to do specifically with their children, which I think is quite an important topic to cover, based on the fact that they seem to be forgotten about in the story, more or less. So yeah, if you get the time, check that out.
Nice. And Teabag, have you seen? I know I didn't set this in the homework, so sort of, what have you seen in the way of these serialized horrors?
So The Walking Dead, I've seen. I've seen the first series. Excuse me. I've seen the first series of American Horror Stories. I couldn't get into it after the second season, just because of all sort of like the narrative changes. Freak Show just completely didn't bother. I didn't bother with at all. But I thought the first season of that one was good. The Walking Dead, I really liked it, and of course they had the spin-offs as well. Fear the Walking Dead, which was a really good spin-off as well. It did the main series did sort of taper off a bit as it went on a bit. One could argue maybe it went on for too long. But yeah, I think if you're talking horror serials, then that was probably the one I stuck around the most for.
And I think it's interesting that we don't see as many of them, but we're starting to experiment with them. And what I'm going to suggest is I sort of have a weird theory of horror, and it's kind of like comedy. Both of them, to be successful, really rely on building up tension expertly and then releasing it. So timing is really important. But I also think that comedy and horror, they're both sort of moods that are kind of hard to sustain. You know, I'm like, am I alone in that? Like, I kind of find it hard to watch a comedy and feel like, and just be laughing the whole time. I find that like quite exhausting. This is just me, isn't it? It is okay. I could be weird on this one.
It depends on the comedy, I guess. I mean,
I would say it's kind of like it's an intense emotion. It's a lot harder. Like you can find things tense. Like I think thrillers and action films have you feeling kind of tense, but horror films going for that scare, like that is a much more extreme response, I think. And because of that, I think it's kind of harder to sustain. And so I find that you kind of get, I guess, essentially horror struggles when you make it a really long story, just because sustaining that mood for that long is quite difficult.
Definitely.
Like horror tends to be powerful when it's kind of short and sweet.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, this is where The Walking Dead really fell down, because they only really had one gimmick to scare you, and that was zombie behind a door, zombie in a dumpster, something like that, and it gets really old really fast, which is where American Horror Story is a little bit better, where they can.
I challenge you on that a little bit. The Walking Dead had more than just your zombies, as the or the walkers. Sorry, as the seasons went on, the theme became less about the walkers, and more about the actual human threat. So you had obviously your Negans, you had your governors. Obviously, you had the guy who played Trevor in GTA 5. I can't remember his actual character name. So you had some really menacing characters in the show. The zombies or the walkers, sorry, were more. They were more of a plot device in some ways. You know, we need to storm a secure area. Oh, we'll just direct a whole bunch of walkers to their compound so that they get overrun. Oh, we need a quick jump scare. Oh, look, there's a walker. But they lost. I do agree. They lost the importance as such as the years went on. But yeah, there was more. I think as the years went on, it definitely became more about the actual villains, quote unquote, than the walkers. I mean, seasons 1 and 2 are prime examples of obviously the main threat, of course, the walkers. But you know, they've adjusted to life, by sort of like the 3rd, 4th season, and they're just an annoyance more than anything.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously to compensate with that, I suppose you had Negan. And then, I mean, what's really the scare there? It's kind of more tense, and then it's just violent. If you get what I mean, which is fine. That wasn't the issue with that series, really. Negan was the only good part of that series. So, yeah, but I do think it definitely has to do with length. I mean, five series is probably long enough for any sort of series.
I think with Walking Dead in particular, I to this day I still think their best season was the 1st season, and I think what helped that was the fact that it was only 6 episodes long. It was a short series, and then you really saw, because when they did the 2nd season, it was doubled. It was 12 episodes, and I kind of think they lost a bit of the momentum. There was lost a bit because the majority of the time it was spent on the farm,
on that
just
fucking
just
farm.
that farm, and it only sort of culminated at the end with that with the herd coming through and the infinite shotgun scene. You spent like 11 episodes building up to that one moment. And of course, then I think they find, is it the prison they find in season 3?
Season 3 is the prison.
Yeah. And of course, that's terrifying in its own right. Narrow rooms and a whole horde of infected in Wing D.
So they seem to be managing to get some of the scares going by shaking it up a little bit. Like I know the show is famous for sort of changing location each season. I've got to admit, I've only seen season 1. Rather liked it, but I heard things. I didn't go further. I know something I really need to watch is Dark, which I started watching. I mostly because it was German, so it's kind of a little bonus there. But I need to go back and finish it. I know I've been recommended it by subscribers, and I really want to honour that. So I do want to watch that. But I do gather that The Walking Dead has kind of a problem that is, I say, part of the tension between horrors and serials, and that's essentially that they struggle with character vulnerability. Basically, in horror, your characters need to be at risk, and in a serialized show, you're kind of hesitant to kill off characters.
Well, you say that, but in The Walking Dead, characters can just go like that. It can happen. It's almost Game of Thrones is quite popular for that. Game of Thrones is quite popular where nobody is safe, and The Walking Dead is no exception. Obviously, I won't spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but I mean, if you look at sort of like the characters from the 1st season and you compare them to the last season, it's a vastly different cast, and there are various reasons for that. But no character is safe. I think possibly the only exception to that was Daryl from the 1st season. I think he's probably the only exception. Hence the old meme: "If Daryl dies, we riot," was born. but yeah, no character safe in The Walking Dead. They're very much vulnerable. I mean, when obviously Negan was introduced, because I don't know if you know, but obviously The Walking Dead's heavily influenced off of the comics, and so, but people didn't quite think that Glenn was going to face the same fate as Glenn did in the comics, but he did. But then there was another character who we didn't think was going to suffer, and just out of nowhere, boom, that's spontaneous. Right, you're down. There's another episode where a couple are talking just on this road as they're walking down, and then just out of nowhere, arrow right in the eye, done. Just no warning. And I think
I'm getting intrigued about this series.
Yeah,
you may have converted me here.
You have to be patient with it. I think up to. I think how far did I get into it? I think I got about 5, 7 or 8 seasons. And to be honest, I'd probably still watch it. It's just I don't have as much time to sit down and go through them. But yeah, I think there's also some spin-offs coming out as well. So I think it's like a 3-part series to do with Rick Grimes, obviously the protagonist from the Walking Dead series. That's something I'm going to watch. And of course, Fear the Walking Dead as well. I need to watch that, really.
So it seems like they have just kind of Chad Yes their way out of something I think is a major problem. Like, I'm going to cite shows I really like: Buffy, Angel, Supernatural. Scare, good as they were, and I don't want to pigeonhole them, like, horror is not the only thing they did. They were pushing lots of genres. They're trying different things, and they emphasize different things at different moments. But scariness was definitely something that they struggled to keep up, I think. They got characters you loved, and as much as they did go, generally, there was a heck of a lot of plot armor being thrown on characters. And the stronger they got, the less vulnerable they were. So even though you care about them, which is really important for, that empathy and really building the fear, you if you don't care about them, it's not going to be as scary. You're not as emotionally invested. But if you don't feel they're vulnerable, that also sort of takes away from some of the fear.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Supernatural, and that's quite an interesting one, because that show, Sam and Dean, they have kind of almost like a comic book problem in that, excuse me, in that they can die, but they'll always come back. And so, I remember the first time one of the characters died. It was a really sort of hard-hitting moment, because obviously, the two brothers, and they've got a really close connection. And when they first died, it was when one of them first died, it was a shock. And then obviously he came back on a condition that the other one would only have a year to live. And oh no, that's happened. And then they're just coming back again and again. They can die. In fact, if I remember correctly, there was one episode where they died just randomly at the very beginning of the episode, and the whole episode was built around them coming back to life. I think they were in heaven, or their version of heaven. So it lost all its effectiveness after a point, and I think even the show's producers even became aware of that.
I mean, they did a lot right, but with the popularity of the show, as you say, it's something they can't really avoid. And I think I'd say, like, how do I describe it before? Like, the main character deaths on Supernatural are a lot like that sort of 3 a.m. kebab. It's really enjoyable. It can be very messy, but that thing's just coming back. So I'm sorry, folks. That was terrible. That was awful. Moving swiftly on to better jokes. But so The Walking Dead seems to have got one way around that issue, but I think, I'm not sure we quite covered it, but both The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor and American Horror Story, they seem to have taken a very different approach to that, where they can keep the vulnerability, and they don't necessarily have to go on too long either. They don't have that sort of length issue where they just do the reset at the end of each season.
Yeah, definitely. Which is, they have the advantage of being able to use the same actors and playing different characters. which I mean, I've not seen Hill House, but from what I hear, people prefer it to Bly Manor, which is good. So, but with American Horror Story, as I say, they just go on for too long. I mean, you're comparing, I think it's 24 episodes in American Horror Story per season, and then the Haunting anthology is like 9 each. So you're comparing 9 hours to, 24 hours. It's difficult to. It's difficult for what's the show called? American Horror Story. Then to keep the tension up, which is they have about 8 story threads. So and then even keeping up with them is difficult. Whereas Bly Manor had about 3 different story threads, episodes completely dedicated to some of them. And I think that worked a lot better in its favour. And I imagine Hill House is similar because I think it's the same series, so I imagine they'll be trying the same things with them. So
yeah, it's slightly longer, but okay. I'm so excited for when you watch Hill House. Like, I think you've done it the right way round. Like, I don't want to I don't want to jump the gun too early here, but I wish I'd seen it the other way around, like starting with Bly and then gone on to Hill House. Like, I really wish I'd done it that way.
Am I right in saying that Hill House was the first?
It was indeed, series? Yes. Okay, yes. Okay. I'm still finding it weird that Bly Manor came out in 2020 because it seems like it was ages ago. Mm-hmm. But they really got that thing out super quick. I'm trying to remember now if Hill House was 2018 or 2019. It wasn't. It wasn't that long ago. And also checking, am I the only person who's seen both seasons?
Yeah, I've only seen I've only seen
cool. This is cool. That is no problem whatsoever. So I think that is a very interesting way of getting around the serial issue.
Okay,
I'm seeing in chat people preferring Hill House. Folks who've seen both, can you in the chat just leave whether you preferred Hill House or Bly Manor? Just Bly or Hill House is good if you've seen both. Just out of interest, I just want to watch that chat and see where people are with that. But in saying that, I don't really want to rain on the parade. Like the topic we had this week, I don't think it's a little harder to talk on its own because it's quite self-contained, and I think I didn't have as much to say on it because I mostly just wanted to talk about Bly Manor.
Yeah, fair. I do too, to be honest. And I mean, we can talk about how it works as serial as well. So it feeds into the topic anyway. I'm
very happy to do that. Mr. Gently Benevolent, you are consistently going above and aboard on the old horror homework there. I am impressed watching both. Nice. You do indeed get extra credit. Okay, so I think probably everyone should have seen or should know what we're talking about. You are forewarned. You know we go full spoiler mode when we discuss something. We're going to cover all the plot. We're going to be going into the ins and outs of the writing. We are going to be crudely psychoanalyzing the writers. Well, I am. I assume everyone else is too. And, imputing scurrilous motivations into their writing. But nevertheless, I think it's good and customary to give a little overview of what the Haunting of Bly Manor is. I would offer it up to Haryan or Teabag if you would like to. A brief summary of what the show is about.
Go on, Haryan. I know you've been wanting to talk about it for ages. He hasn't shut up about it, chat.
I came on your stream to say one comment. But yeah, so the premise of the show is a American woman appears to be trying to kind of run away from her past because she recently told her fiance she doesn't want to marry him anymore and horrifically saw him die, and she seems to be haunted by his. I guess it's just a manifestation of her guilt that she feels like he got him killed. Which, if you see the scene, she basically breaks up with him, and then he immediately gets run over. It's full spoiler mode in case you didn't know. So, and she's haunted by it, which is basically just a black ghost with glowing glasses, which looks quite creepy, and she only really sees it in mirrors. So she ends up being an au pair for this rich guy whose niece and nephew had their parents died about a year ago on a trip to India. He's never been visiting because he feels guilty. Again, he's haunted by premonitions of himself, basically. Because he feels guilty because he feels he got his parents killed, their parents killed. So this woman starts to look after the kids at Hill House, and clearly there's things up there. The kids are acting really weird, not just like, kids playing about weird, but acting out at random moments and not acting themselves at times. And obviously it's called The Haunting of Bly Manor, so there's ghosts about. Which obviously doesn't help the situation.
It would be quite fraudulent if we didn't have an actual haunting of Bly Manor.
Well, you're not wrong. So
no, absolutely fine. So yeah, she is. She's in this sort of spooky mansion. She is there to look after kids. Everyone has sort of complicated pasts, and then something else is going on with the kids. Do you want to carry on? Like a rough overview?
I can do, yes. So I suppose a rough overview would be that the kids are essentially being taken over now and then by two people who recently died at the manor. One was the old au pair, which is why the job was open, and the other was someone called Peter Quint, who was just the family valet, but he stole some money and then immediately died after, due to, as you can see on screen here, the woman there on screen, the Lady of the Lake, and her story is that she is essentially so consumed with grief, bitterness, and just rage that she basically didn't pass over to heaven, or to the afterlife, let's say. So she stays there as a sort of ghostly premonition that is so powerful it causes other people who die at Bly Manor to remain as ghosts, and over time their soul will fade essentially, and that's represented by their face losing their eyes and parts of their nose, and their mouth is less defined as well. And she's essentially in such a monotonous mood that she used to, when she was initially a ghost, she'd come out of the lake. She's in the lake because her spirit's locked in a chest, which gets thrown into the lake by her widow because he was superstitious. She walks up into the house, takes the same path every time, up the stairs to a bedroom, where she is basically expecting her child that she lost after she died. There's a whole episode explaining this. So
I feel like I'm setting you quite a cruel task to just recap the whole thing.
There's a lot to talk about here.
There's a heck of a lot to talk about here.
So essentially when there's a child, she'll pick it up and try and take it back to the lake with her, which does end up killing them. So
really?
I know, crazy.
Shocking.
I know. So but she also on the way kills anyone in her path, and that's because one of the first times she went up, the manor was turned into a quarantine zone, and a plague doctor got in her way. She wanted to know where her child was, and she was still fairly lucid at this time. So in her rage, she basically chokes him and kills him. So that's what she does with everyone that gets in her way when she's trying to find her way to the bedroom, and then she walks back to the lake. So this happens.
She is just this walking focus. She is a manifestation. Yeah. Like, if I want to pretend I understand Freud, she is just like an id. She is just going forward. She's got a single drive. She walks the same path, and she is searching for her kid. And she just does this, and eventually she's got nothing else in her. So she's pure id. She's pure want.
She as time goes on, she forgets.
Yeah.
Why she's taking that path. All she knows is that eventually it gets to a point, and this is why part of their faces fade, because essentially they become forgotten, and they even forget themselves as to why they're there. There's another bit that's sort of separate to this, which I'll talk about, or hopefully we'll get to at some point. But yeah, she obviously at the beginning, she's going to is it the West Wing that she goes to her daughter's bedroom, hoping that her daughter will be there. And then obviously so much time has passed, she forgets. She forgets that she has a daughter. She forgets why she's going there. All she knows is that she must go there, and that there's and that one day a child will be there, which is why one of the victims is just a child. And even in narration, it's like, oh, there's a child here. This is why I'm walking here. Oh, this must be why I'm here. And then just takes the kid. So while she has that focus and drive, it is literally narrowed down to, I walk to the West Wing. If there's a child there, I'm taking it. If not, I go back. Well, either way, I go back to the lake. Yeah.
Another thing to point out actually is that when she sees an adult in the bed, she doesn't kill him. She leaves him there and she's lucid then, and she just asks, "Where's the kid?" And that's when she kills the plague doctor, because he tries to get her out. Yeah. And I think that's why that's why people in her path she kills, but not people she just kind of sees or knows there.
That might solve a plot hole.
I know the plot hole you're thinking of. Why didn't she kill the parents when they were in bed?
If she can just come in and just be like, okay, no kid, and then turn around, and it's only if she's interrupted. Okay, all right.
I know about that plot hole because I've seen people say it, but it's like she doesn't kill people in the bed, and they might. Odds are, because she does this early in the morning all the time, so odds are they were sleeping, or not there. So so I knew that plot hole was going to come up.
No,
so
that's fine. And I have okay, so I am maybe a little harsh. I'm going to be harsher on the show than you folks. But it comes from a place of love, because I went into this series with the highest of expectations, utterly hyped, and that may have been my undoing. But there are moments of subtlety in this where there were things that I thought it didn't work for me, but you put a little bit of thinking into it, and you think, okay, the information is there for me to piece this together. So the way you've just solved a plot hole there, I think could be a good example of that. Like another example of a thing I thought was kind of annoying and didn't work for me is one of those that it's a moment that's meant to be very scary early on. It's when you kind of see it coming a mile off that the children lock her in a closet.
Yeah.
Which obviously it's kind of symbolic, because we are going to be probably talking a little bit of gay stuff here. You know.
Okay.
The stream may have been infiltrated. I don't know.
It turns out the main character's gay. There you go.
Yeah. So she gets locked in a closet, causing her some distress. I don't think that's actually the symbolism they wanted to do, but if they wanted, it's there. And I thought, okay, that's a bit annoying. And then she comes out and she's just mad at the children. And I thought, okay, the kids are being douches. They were just possessed by the ghost, and that's why they did it. And it didn't really work for me. And then it was actually someone else pointed out that the kids had made her promise not to go in the hallway at night, which is where the Lady of the Lake walks.
Yeah.
And they know that she did the first night, so they wanted to lock her in the closet to keep her safe at the time that the Lady of the Lake did her rounds.
Interesting.
And I didn't piece this together, and I felt kind of silly about it.
Yeah,
because it does make sense when it's laid out like that. It's
was that
a nice detail.
But was that an unintended consequence? Again, is that just somebody is that actually the case, or is it that something that could be implied?
I think it's implied. It's never explicitly stated, but there are quite a few lovely things in this show that are there that are not explicitly stated, but there's some good foreshadowing that you can put the pieces together for if you want to.
Right.
Yeah, just for the closet scene, they do lock her in because the Lady of the Lake, the little doll, isn't under the cupboard, isn't under the dresser. That when she's in the lake, that's where it goes, and when not, the little doll's basically somewhere else.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's moved by the by the kid ghost. That's so that's how we know that. And as you say, it's why I love this show. It really respects your intelligence. It doesn't outright say this is why they did this. It's pieced together by information from other episodes, and it's not even stated that the kid's the one moving the pieces to let them know where everyone is. He's just playing with the dolls in one scene in one episode, and that's the only bit that says this is why the dolls are moving, and that's why they use it as a warning system for the lady. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a very nice little detail.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't switch my brain on.
No, it's cool. It does reward a rewatch, I would say.
I'd look in the background of every scene. Odds are you'll see a ghost. Because the Plague Doctor's in about 8 scenes, more than that probably, about 15 scenes.
Right.
In the first episode alone. And then you get a soldier as well, and the soldier's never referred to in any way. All you know is that there's a doll of a soldier, and you see him in the background of 2 or 3 scenes, which is really cool. But yeah, this is the stuff you miss, and I only know that because I looked at videos looking for it. So
yeah, I mean, it is very easy to miss. I went. The hidden ghosts were a big thing in the Haunting of Hill House, and they basically, as far as I'm aware, they weren't mentioned. They were just there for people to discover, and once people knew that was a thing, that just the every episode would just have ghosts in it, and they wouldn't be symbolized and signaled with big spooky music or even focused on. But they're there in the background and sometimes very close. And you would just, your brain would just say, yeah, don't worry about it. This seems legit. Carry on. Once you notice them, you're kind of on a mission to look out for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting Insidious vibes now, that scene, if you remember.
Which one?
So the tiptoe through the tulip scene where the woman's just going around doing the laundry. And as she walks towards the front room, there's that boy just sort of tucked away, just sort of hiding among the coats. And then when she goes outside, then she sees him dancing by the TV. But yeah, it's like a blink and you miss it moment.
Yeah, there are so many of them. I thought, because they went quite heavy with it in episode 1 with the Plague Doctor, I thought they were sort of going to lean on it and then move away and do something else. And no, they did carry on, which isn't a problem. It's very much their thing to do. So it's not a problem that they repeated it. But I missed them. I think I just sort of stopped looking for them, and then I sort of assumed that they hadn't done it as much, and then I ended up watching a few compilations and finding out no, they are once again, they are everywhere.
Yeah, I think I saw the Plague Doctor once in a mirror, and then another time when it's the obvious scene where you see him turn. They're the only 2 times I saw it, but then he's in 15 more. I think the reason they put so many in is they're like, 15 scenes, they'll see one of them, but people have missed them.
I'm one of those people. I have to say, I had no idea.
Okay, your mission, if you watch Hill House, is scan for those ghosts.
Will do. Empire in the chat. I'm getting goosebumps looking around my house, mate. You're not the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real highlight in it, and I think if we're going to talk, there's another amazing bit of foreshadowing for when we talk about episode 5, which is you will notice that Hannah, played by Tanea Miller. In the first few episodes, she sort of when she's going around, she's doing her thing. She's sort of pausing. She's sort of making these my neck motions.
Oh yeah,
showing neck pain, and I'm just like, oh yeah, it is tough. It is a tough job. Yeah, very physical. And then episode 5 lands, and you're like, oh, foreshadowing. Very good, very good.
That is something I missed. Again. The more you think about this show, there's just another detail, which is why I love it. So I just wanted to sneak that in.
I was going to say, like one of the bits where she sort of gets tucked away into a memory, her neck just probably jolts back. Yeah, and it was at that moment I was like, yeah, she's definitely dead. I mean, she was definitely dead. But the way that they sort of tied it all into the first episode where you meet Hannah for the first time. Because if you remember, she's standing over the well, isn't she?
Yeah.
And she's just staring down. And then obviously she's like, oh, sorry about that. But obviously she's looking down at herself.
Yeah.
And obviously it takes you a few episodes to find that out. I thought that was really well done. Good little twist. And then it made me think, well, what about the gardener? What about Owen? What about actually no, it would just be them two, wouldn't it? So yeah, what about what about those two? Because you don't really see them outside of the manor. You just see them in and around, sort of just popping up every now and then. And I thought I don't know if it did for you guys, but for me certainly, I was sort of asking myself questions like, is it just the kids, and is it what was her name, the au pair?
Danny?
Danny, that's it. Yeah, was it just her and the kids that were alive in that house, and everyone else was a ghost?
Yeah,
I might say that that's actually a weakness of the show in a way.
How do you mean?
Okay, we have to get a criticism in. It's
no, we don't. It's perfect.
I don't want to rain on the parade, but okay,
no,
it was obviously quite a big moment, that reveal in episode 5, and that's kind of similar to Hill House. They have a lot of setup and then a really big payoff. But I think the way they did the ghost in this, it did have me just asking those questions a lot, and maybe not in as good a way. Like, so I kind of written off that Hannah's a ghost, and I'm then just sort of noticing, well, hang on, she's drinking, she's holding a bottle, like she's physically interacting with things.
She's changing clothes.
And it has me wondering, sort of, okay, so a lot of the plot nominally revolves around the previous au pair and the valet, Peter Quinton, Rebecca Jessel. And their whole thing is, they're limited, they're very trapped in, and it seems to be their main issue is, they end up not being able to leave, but you wonder if they can be physical. I mean, how big of a problem is it that they can't leave?
How do you mean?
The issue wasn't that they can't leave. The issue was that they were going to fade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Peter was more concerned with, because obviously he could see the other ghosts around him, and obviously their faces are all fading away, and he didn't want to go that way. So he was just trying to find a way to escape, wasn't he? So that he didn't fade, essentially.
It wasn't. It was less so that they were trying to leave, and more so they were trying to be mortal again.
I see that. I just found myself thinking about the rules of being a ghost a lot in the show, and I guess it's good that they do explore it, because it's obviously quite pivotal to the plot, but it did end up staying on my mind a lot. That was just running around these scenarios and wondering why they worked and why they might not have worked in other circumstances.
Yeah, it does feel inconsistent in some way.
Yeah, so like a big thing would be Peter Quinton, Rebecca Jessel, they try this very pivotal thing where they think they can fully merge, and then leave Bly Manor.
Yeah.
Because if you're a ghost, you are not able to leave. If you're killed in Bly Manor, you are not allowed to leave the property. Your spirit is stuck there. That is the key conflict. Yeah. So they try that, and it doesn't work. And so I was wondering, why did that not work? Why do they want to try that again with the kids? Why do they think it will work then?
Because with the kids, they're kind of removing the kids' whole consciousness and replacing it with their own. That was the whole point in the ritual of, it's me, it's you, it's us. And then the kids just completely let go. That's what they were going for. I can't remember how they know to do that. Or if they even
that's
know
kind of
work.
the thing. It comes out of nowhere for me. I may have just missed the detail. It's very possible.
Well, this is what I was thinking. I should have looked it up beforehand, but I didn't have time.
Empire, Are you okay? I mean, we are spoiling the whole thing. I hope it doesn't ruin it for you, mate.
Yeah, just spend 9 hours of your life watching the show before this, because we do spoil it.
Yeah, we're talking the whole thing in this.
Yeah.
If you're cool with it, that's super cool. But
I inferred at the very least that I imagine it had something to do with obviously the what was episode 8 where they go through the black and white story. I imagine it was something to do with how she died, but I can't remember the details of it too well at the moment. And I imagine that sometime in her life, I imagine it's something to do with the woman, and that because they can dream hop, they can obviously see other memories. Peter might have tried to dream hop with the faded woman, but then she's faded, so how will that work? I mean, this is a question that I think's fair. I'm not sure how they did it, but I'm sure the detail's in there somewhere, probably in the episode where they try it.
Couldn't they only dream hop through their own memories though?
Their own memories or someone else's memories, I think. That's what it seemed to imply to me, because I think
Hannah, she does at one point. Yeah, she dream hops into other people's memories, doesn't she?
Yeah,
that's where you get more backstory between Peter and Rebecca.
Yeah, and Rebecca. Yeah, Rebecca dream hops into Flora as well. A couple of times, so you can go into other people's memories. So I imagine it was something to do with dream hopping into the Lady of the Lake, because she's not going to be a problem when you're already dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, that wasn't explicit, but like a lot of things in this show, nothing's really explicit.
It's just
or
implied.
Some details aren't. Yeah, so. But I can't say conclusively. So.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's a mild blemish on the show. I would say that when it spends a lot of time exploring the rules. Like episode 5 is pretty much a big exploration by Quint and Jessel over what they can do and what the rules of being a ghost are. Sorry, I think it would be 6 or 7. That thing that's really quite key to the plot, the merging, the sharing consciousness, that is quite unexplained, unexplored. And when it's very key to sort of major motivations and schemes in the whole show.
Yeah. Well, I think that all of the ghosts have different manifestations in terms of their abilities. Like you have your Rebecca and your Peter who can possess other people. You've got Hannah that can interact with physical objects and also change her change her clothes. It sounds like, oh, okay, that's not a big deal, but none of the other characters, Peter and Rebecca, couldn't. They were stuck in the clothes that they died in. And of course you've got the Lady in the Lake. So maybe it could, because again, it's implied when they talked, when Peter's possessed the boy, and he mentions that you've imagined wearing different clothes. Why don't you just accept that you're dead instead of imagining different clothes? So maybe her manifestation of her abilities is just essentially her willing it.
I think there's a good chance that is accurate in the show, in the sense that Hannah, I think, is able to do what she does because she basically doesn't accept it.
Yeah.
She's rejecting it, and that's why she seems to just sort of forget what has happened to her at points and is able to sort of carry on as normal, essentially.
Yeah.
And do things like change the outfit. You might say that's just a story writing conceit. But your mileage may vary on that one.
Yeah. Another thing to point out is that she was a living. So all her stuff would still be there, and no one knows she's dead. So she'd still actually have all her clothes there. Whereas with Bex and Peter, their clothes weren't there. So that also might be why they don't change.
Well, it's because they explicitly say, or possessed Peter explicitly says, you're imagining new clothes. So you're not physically putting on. You're not physically putting on clothes. You're essentially willing new clothes onto you to give off the impression that you're going elsewhere or getting changed. And he's like, why are you doing that? Cool. Just accept it. Look down the well. Look, you're dead. All right. There's your neck that side, and there's your head the other side.
Yeah.
Accept it.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, I'm Hannah.
Yeah, I mean that's good. That's good enough for a reason for me.
Yeah.
So I forgot about that line.
Although being able to physically interact with things, well, okay, yeah, you could argue why did they just show her changing her clothes? Oh yeah, no, I'm a ghost, but yeah, I can phase through walls, but I can also touch things. You see her doing it, so if you're like you say, if it's just a conceited point to try and fill a plot hole.
I mean, it's just a throwaway line, but it answers. Oh, how does she change clothes? Oh, she just imagines it. So well, that's fine. Yeah.
I missed 15 ghosts in one episode, but I spotted one line in like a 4.5 hour, 400 odd minute story.
Yeah,
that's cool. By our powers combined, we pick up all the important stuff. It's something that I think. Oh, you know what? We'll stick on the positive because we're talking about the nature of the ghosts and what they do, and something Harry you hinted towards is the meaning of the ghosts. And this is what I love. These aren't just ghosts. This is not just Casper. Each ghost is there indicating something, telling you something about the character. And there is some symbolism in there that gets a sort of ex-A-level English student very happy in me. So, I mean, if we go with Danny, the obvious example is she's haunted by someone that we learn is her fiance, and she's seeing him at the moment of his death, and it's that image. But what's important is she only ever sees him in mirrors.
Yeah.
That is your indication that he's there about something that she feels about herself. It's not external.
Yeah.
It's when she sees herself, she sees him. She sees this tragic death really intimately connected with who she is. It's such a nice little touch. It's subtle. Other ghosts, subtlety is not exactly how I describe them.
You're talking about Henry's, I take it.
I think Henry is a very good example of that. I don't think I'm unfair now. Way back when this was first released, I did a series where I talked about the whole thing episode by episode. I think I combined some of them, and something that's quite important to the Haunting of Bly Manor is, unlike the Haunting of Hill House, where there was a fairly small group of writers, most of the writing and I believe nearly all the directing was done by Mike Flanagan, the series creator, someone who I bring up over and over again as a really good example of amazing horror, who is really producing some of the best stuff that we're seeing post 2010. He's a popular guy now. So when The Haunting of Bly Manor is being made, he was not able to devote as much time to it. He was not there able to be influencing every single episode in exactly the same way. So you get a much broader number of writers coming in, new writers who had nothing to do with the first season. Also I'm sure a name that will have caught your guys' attention, Laurie Penny, the story editor. I'm sure many an eyebrow was raised there.
Yes, that was the first thing when I saw that, and I was like, huh? What?
Yeah, I mean, hey, life is full of surprises. And so this does mean there is a bit of variability. Some episodes are written fairly differently to others, and my brain is blanking, and I'm not quick enough to share the screen, so I can't look it up, but I believe episode 7, the one I had a big problem with, was written by Rebecca Klingel.
Okay.
People can check that. I may be wrong. And she, in her episode, she doesn't like to be subtle. And so, yes, when we get to Henry's ghost, we should maybe describe that ghost first.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Teabag, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So I interpreted that ghost, if you will, just to be a manifestation of his sinisterness. Think of the devil on your shoulder, egging you on to do bad things. He was kind of that guy. But at the same time, he reveled in the misery that it caused Henry. I point to one scene in particular where they're going through, because he goes through memory. Well, he's having flashbacks at least anyway. There's the one scene with the phone when the phone's ringing, and Henry knows why that phone's ringing, because it's to tell him that that his brother and her wife have passed away, and he doesn't want to answer the phone. And the manifestation is enjoying that pain that Henry's going through. You know, go on, answer it. You know you want to. You're going to answer it anyway. You have to answer it. Go on. And then at the end afterwards, he's like, "How did that feel? You know, how did that feel? Oh, it was good for me. I really enjoyed that." But yeah, he was just a manifestation for me as to the evil that was inside Henry, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, he's all the self-loathing. He is a sort of self-destructive urge. You know, I mean, the fact that he's sort of urging Henry on to drink constantly.
Yeah,
but he's also transparently he's not really a ghost.
No,
at all. He's transparently not a ghost, but he is serving the same function.
I'd consider him to be like more of a psychological manifestation, similar to Danny's ex. And I'll admit I was a bit disappointed that that manifestation wasn't more of a supernatural one and just more of a psychological trauma. But yeah, definitely with Henry, because obviously, for those who don't know, Henry was having an affair with his brother's wife, and he was the biological father of Flora, the young girl. And so he was riddled with guilt because he didn't find out until his brother basically disowned him. He had no idea, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Well, I'm unsure about that. I think
I'm pretty sure he didn't know, because when the brother's like taking all of his stuff out of the office, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "The dates, August or something along those lines, 9 months I was away."
Oh yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, I couldn't count it. I couldn't work it out until now."
I think it may have just been that it's that gave him away, but I think he's a smart guy. He will have been aware of this. Also, did you like the guy playing the brother?
Oh, yeah.
Matthew Holness.
Yes.
Was that Henry or his brother?
Henry's brother, played by Matthew Holness of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. Yeah. It was a little treat for me. I enjoyed that.
I must say, Henry had the best accent in that whole show.
Yeah, I liked Henry's accent.
I complain about the accents because there are many accent slips in this show.
Yes, I will. There was one bit when they're sitting down and they're talking about the dates, and the dad actually uses the word "the maths didn't work out."
Oh God, yeah, that got me.
No, actually, no. Sorry, I think he said the math didn't work out, and I'm like, ugh, maths.
Yeah, there's the lady. Flora and Miles's mother asks Hannah if she wants a ride. It's like, you're not going to the merry-go-round. You would offer her a lift. Gosh darn it! Next, you're going to tell her to just drop her stuff in the trunk.
Yeah.
Or no, the boot. Sorry.
Yeah.
Get it confused, but how dare they?
The trunk is Americanisms. Yeah, oh no, there's a problem. There's a problem with the car. Open the hood. No. The bonnet. The bonnet.
Yeah.
It's like, damn it, Americans! Like, you've got a British story editor who doesn't catch this stuff. Like, how dare you?
I mean, is it established that he spends a lot of time in America?
He just travels the world, I think, doing business. I don't think it's specifically America.
But he's a proper English gent. He should know this. They should all know this. You know,
I mean,
he's basically a clone of Douglas Murray. There's no way he'd make that mistake.
You have a stain on your blouse. Just Henry. That's my favourite line from him.
I loved him in this. I thought he really just stole the show. He was having a great time. I think his haunting, his psychological manifestation. It is just through good acting. It is grotesque and disturbing. I really liked it. I mean, my problem with it is just that that they have the brother character come in and just really spell out the metaphor and then go over that metaphor in biro and then in marker and then just tattoo that metaphor right on your face so you see it every time you look in the mirror, so there's no way you can miss it. There are just moments in the writing like that where it's in contrast to all this lovely subtle stuff that we were laying out, that just on a few bits they just decide to absolutely hit you with a sledgehammer to make sure you don't miss it. And I don't think I'm unfair to complain about that.
No, it was definitely more subtle than it hit you with a sledgehammer at the very least. But no, everything to do, well, not everything, but a lot to do with Henry. His ghost really was a bit of a sledgehammer. It's like, oh, I revel in your grief and things like that. It's like, yeah, I get it. But
yeah, that's fine. It was more that, I mean, I won't look at the clip, but it does have the brother just spelling it out like, you've got to live with yourself. And you're a nasty little demon, aren't you? And it's just like, it's spelling it out over and over. It really did keep going. It's sort of, we got the message.
Did you know, Henry, that you slept with your brother's wife?
Yeah.
And that's a very nasty thing to do. You should feel really bad. But while you feel bad, I'll revel in your pain.
Yeah, it
was
definitely could have
been.
Fun. Yeah.
And it's also the same writer. Gosh, I hope I'm not messing this up. I believe it is the same writer, Rebecca Klingel, who wrote the prior episode, which has another thing I complained about a fair amount. So I want to run it by you guys. I want to see what you think, because I had big problems with the Danny and Jamie romance. Because
why?
There were bits I liked with it, but it was Jamie having to do this massive monologue for 7 minutes and 50 seconds when she's previously been super taciturn, and she goes on this long monologue just about her whole life and about moonflowers.
Well, yeah,
I think I tuned out at that point. I think I tuned out during that bit.
Oh, I really like that bit. I thought it was great. Well, I know what you mean. You get the feeling she's acting out of character, but she's really connecting with Danny at that point, and she's kind of opening up. And to me, that was saying, "Oh, their relationships moving forward." Because to be honest, Jamie reminds me a lot of me.
You're a lesbian gardener.
Well,
I
like women,
mate. Yeah,
but in terms of like, I'll try and talk people who are having a moment down. I'll keep my cards close to my chest most of the time when I'm really bad at introducing myself. So we'll just act like I've known someone for ages, like she does at the beginning. It's things like that, and so to open up like that, I'm like, wow, she's like really falling for Danny, really.
No, I can see that, and there was that scene in episode 4 where Jamie bullied Owen Jones over Twitter. I can really see that resemblance now.
Wait, what?
Are you actually referencing anything there?
No. I'm having fun with the idea of you being like Jamie.
Yeah, that's.
But no, this is cool. It will be a bit Marmite. I kind of liked when she was subtler. Again, it's just, I think I didn't like how this writer really wanted to spell things out and really just wanted to not really restrain it and just not risk being subtle. I can see the argument that it is kind of an outpouring of someone who locks her feelings up,
Yeah.
and she feels safe to sort of be a bit more open and honest. Yeah, I can see that argument.
Mm. Yeah.
She had a very much, you talk about excuse me, talk about that monologue bit. Do you feel that could have been better as its own sort of mini episode, as a show don't tell? Because if I remember correctly, she's going through like a whole family history, isn't she? When she's talking about her upbringing, the separation from her brother, I think it is, and all that stuff. Like, that could have maybe been like, not an entire episode, but
I felt it went 0 to 60 real quick.
Yeah.
And it just, I like the subtle stuff. Like, I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up where all the gay relationships on TV were like these really tiny, subtle moments.
Right.
And I like that style of it. You sort of, it was, scarcity creating value there. But I didn't like the big spell out. I could have even gone for that monologue, which, it tells you about the character, but it's more about it tells you about the character by having the character just tell you things straight out.
Yeah.
And I prefer it to build up slowly. Like, this was a shorter season run than Hill House,
Okay.
They were one episode shorter, so if we have one extra episode to maybe round things out and give that relationship a little more time, I could have gone with that. I felt that we went from a nice subtle moment of connection and acknowledgement. So that was, I believe, in episode 4, where they just sort of have that little moment of connecting by the car and just touching hands, and you just go, oh, okay, lovely. My gaydar was accurate. Good. You go from that to like full monologue, and then, straight into bed, basically.
Yeah.
And it was just, that went really quick for me. Your mileage may vary, and I could be talking rubbish. This is all possible.
Maybe that's just constraints on the actual running time of the show, if you know what I mean. Like, bear in mind, it's only 9 episodes. Maybe if it was a larger series in terms of the number of episodes, perhaps they could have fleshed that out more through, like I said, through showing rather than telling. Again, like, sort of go back to it, The Walking Dead had to put, when it was a 6-episode season, a lot of the stuff, there was always something going on in the episodes. They had no time to fill it with, like, again, compare it to season 2, they had no moments where they could just sort of kick back and relax. Something was happening in every episode. And maybe because The Haunting of Bly Manor had that same thing, where every episode had something going on to do with either the lake or Danny, or other bits going on. Maybe oh god, what's her name? Is it Jamie? Jamie maybe got pushed to the side a bit, and they thought, oh, maybe we need to flesh her character out a bit. Let's give her a monologue bit where we can develop her character that way, because we don't have an episode spare that we can flush that out.
Yeah, it's possibly just something that got rushed. Like, I did feel there was a lot about Hannah that we didn't get clarified, like who she's lighting candles for in the chapel.
True, because how many candles were burning? I think she lit one for 4, because there was, because I know I think she was lighting them for
one was for her ex.
That's it. One was for the ex, because Jamie was like, might as well light it, he's dead to you now. And then I think it was Rebecca and the mother and father. I think that's who the 4 candles were for.
Yeah.
And then a 5th candle when Owen realised, is it Owen, I think, lit a 5th one when he realised Hannah was dead. Yeah. So I think
did they clarify that? Did they absolutely nail that down?
I think it's more implied again. I know that one of the candles is for the ex, even though he's not actually dead, but he's dead to her.
Yeah, I mean that he there's a candle lit for him because what's the Charlotte? Is it Charlotte? Is the mother? She says, "Oh, I light a candle because he's gone."
Oh yes, that's it. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, Charlotte, not Jamie.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why she's lighting one for him, and then there's 2 more for the parents, and then the 4th for, I assume, Rebecca.
Yeah. Again, I think you can imply that, you can assume that just because of who's died there so far, and yeah.
I mean, as we said, it is fine for it not to spell things out. Like I realize that I've kind of gone from, I really didn't like the scene where the character just completely spelled things out in a long monologue.
How about
here's
this?
The thing they didn't explain. Maybe Hannah should have had a massive monologue about her candles.
Yeah. How about this for implying? How about the candle that she burned for her ex was initially for her ex, but then when she realized that she was dead, that candle represented her. So you had Rebecca, her, and the mother and father.
I thought she did a 5th anyway. I thought a 5th was lit anyway by Owen.
I think she lit one for Owen's mum.
Oh yeah. Well, she realizes she's dead, and then the next episode happens where she then, that's like episode 5 where she realizes she's dead.
Well, no, she knows she's dead from episode 1, because when you see her, when you meet her, she's looking down the well, and that's where it ends.
Okay. I think except her death, then I should say.
Yeah, so I think we're seeing her going. I think episode 5 is more or less, oh crap, okay, Hannah's dead, and you're just seeing her going through her through her tuck-ins. I can't think of a better way to express it, because I know they're tucking the memories. So you're just seeing her go through all of that.
Phrasing? Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that we could say is a really nice character moment, in the fact that we can explain a lot of the way Hannah works and behaves, in that she kind of has a lot of denial, a lot of refusal to accept things. And that it sort of explains her sort of manifestation of her behaviour. But I think we see an indication of that in the fact that she's lighting a candle for her ex, that she's sort of refusing to let go of that relationship, even though she's counselled about it.
Yeah,
she's someone who has sort of a stubborn denial of it, and a sort of refusal to be decisive.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Yeah, hey, and it's something that she kind of gets over in the final episode, which is, it's one of those character arcs I hear so much about, that we like, that you can do over a long form story.
Yeah, I liked every character arc as well. They all had one, really. Owen with his mum, and then that ties into Hannah accepting her death, ties into Flora and Miles saying dead doesn't mean gone, because obviously they know about the ghosts. So
yeah.
Hey, James in the chat, bless you. We are full spoiler mode for this. So you're a brave man coming in at this point. If you want to watch unspoiled, then come back and watch another time. But we're going full spoiler analysis. I mean, we totally recommend it, but we are full spoiler mode here.
Yeah, it's definitely a must watch from me. I'd say.
And there's something about that. You see, I'm not sure where to take this, because in discussing the Haunting of Bly Manor, we kind of we skipped ahead for a lot of it, and skipped over something that I thought was actually really key to the advertising of the series, and then really light in the actual series, which is the influence of the original story, The Turn of the Screw, which after the first 2 episodes is like barely there. Which,
right,
it's not so much a problem, but it did cause me a heck of a lot of confusion when I was first watching this.
Okay, I've not seen that, The Turn of the Screw.
Okay, no worries. So, and this is something I can't be super authoritative on, because I do not know my Henry James well. I have so going from the original story and some of his other ghost stories, you get the turn of the screw, for which he is most well known.
Mm-hmm.
And also some of his stories were fed into the really brilliant and available for free on YouTube BBC produced Ghost Stories for Christmas. They are made in the 70s. They are very interesting. The Turn of the Screw was adapted into the 1961 or 62 film The Innocents, where you get a lot of sort of gay coding into the story, which is because it was written by Truman Capote. Bonus fact for you. In fact, the Henry character in that adaptation is basically saying, "Yeah, I've become the guardian for my niece and nephew, but I live a very active and fabulous private life, and I want nothing to do with them. So please be their full-time au pair."
Gotcha.
Like it's subtle about it because it's the 1960s, but the message is very clear there.
Yeah, see, I'll say, yeah. So, but the main difference with this Henry of the Bly Manor one wasn't that he didn't want to see them, but it was just the regret that he had. He couldn't face them because he held himself responsible for their death. Because if it wasn't for him having an affair with Charlotte, they wouldn't have gone to India.
Oh, totally. It's a turnaround. You've got a Henry who wanted nothing to do with them to a Henry who really wants to have something to do with them, but obviously can't because of sort of the personal reasons. It's an interesting turnaround. And I think some of my problems were that I expected it to be a lot more like The Innocents, a lot more like Turn of the Screw.
Okay.
And realistically, what I should have learned from The Haunting of Hill House, that they took the basic novel and the basic story and they did kind of go wild with it. So before you watch The Haunting of Hill House, if you haven't already, there's I want to say 1967, it could be 1957, Robert Wise directed film The Haunting, which is a much more direct adaptation of the Shirley Jackson novel. And you will see how many elements are shared with the TV version of The Haunting in Hill House, but how they are such completely different stories, with one of them so much more fleshed out, understandably, because it's got to fill a whole series. But you see these character names pop up over and over again. You see a character who was slightly gay-coded in the adaptation, sort of managing to smuggle things in under censorship, becoming, let's say, very modern in the TV adaptation. Yes.
Yeah.
But this is fine. This is possibly to its benefit. It's just it caught me unaware, and I should have maybe expected that The Haunting of Bly Manor would be a far looser adaptation, and it very much is, because it's taking lots of elements from other Henry James stories, and of course the 8th episode, which is completely a black and white period ghost story, is from a completely different Henry James short story.
Right. Okay.
Nice.
But it's just something that threw me. It threw me because it kind of got to the most iconic bits at the end of episode 2, and then it just sort of moved them aside to do its own things. So something I was looking forward to in a kind of dreading way was the fact that, in the first 2 episodes, Peter Quint is possessing Miles and basically being a complete creeper. Like Reddit admin levels of creepy. And after that episode, he kind of just drops it.
Yeah. He just wants a fucking drink, damn it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the wine bit. Yeah, I was really confused at that. I wasn't too sure. I wasn't too sure if that was Miles or Peter, but you kind of were you wondering throughout the whole show why the kids are acting really weird? And it is the bit where he acts more like, a 20-year-old guy, I guess, who's a bit of a twat, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And then you end up finding out, like, this is what I love about it. There's a lot of mystery, and it's all ants really, or most of it anyway.
Doesn't that kid wear a turtleneck at some point as well?
Oh, I can't remember.
I swear I see him in a turtleneck, because obviously that's what Peter dies in. His turtleneck.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure he does wear a turtleneck at some point. Because he's having a fag, isn't he? He's having a fag outside, isn't he? And I think I'm pretty sure as a kid, and he's playing with the lighter, and yeah, he's wearing that turtleneck. Yeah. I'm sure he is.
Oh yeah, I mean he's definitely taking on those behaviours then. As we've covered,
I should clarify when I say fag, English slang cigarette. Just clarify that for anyone who's not English in the chat. Sorry, Susan.
I mean, we've talked about the slight difficulties of Americanisms creeping in to a British story. I believe it's Titanic where Leonardo DiCaprio talks about bumming a fag off someone.
Nice.
And you really cannot leave the off someone without causing much confusion.
Well, I think he says bum a smoke, doesn't he?
I've definitely heard bum a fag a few times. I should probably stop saying it. The algorithm is not particularly friendly to the British.
Yeah, that's just because it's racist. It's racism.
Shocking.
It's very American centric. They think they have ownership of the English language. We'll show them.
One thing I absolutely loved when. So in our chat for this, I was getting little updates. Like I don't get updates as much when I say let's just review a film for next week, but because we're doing a series, I was getting little updates throughout, and I'm seeing the enthusiastic response, and I loved it. And so I want to talk about when you got to the end of episode 5, and was it 5? Was it 6? Was the one where you said you got the big scare?
I think that was that's 7. I think
7.
That's the one where Danny gets caught by the lady.
Oh no, not the. I thought you were caught the first time we see her and she gets Peter Quint, because that was the big scare for me.
Oh, that okay.
No, I've been sort of thinking like, okay, I'm feeling a little uneasy. There's some nice stuff. I'm feeling a little creeped out by a few bits, and then that bit did come, and it wasn't really a jump scare, but it just that thing hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, you mean where she gets smacked in the back of the head? Is that the bit you're thinking of before she gets tied up?
I think Teabag was talking about when she is outside and she's got caught, because I'd say the two big scares are and the lady of the lake catches the main character.
Yeah, because that bit caught me, because it's already all hectic because they're trying to get out of the house. Oh my god! Because obviously they're trying to get away from. Well, actually, no, they're trying. If I remember correctly, Danny's got Flora taken out the house, like, get away from here, and then it's all like excited. It's just all excited anyway. And then literally as she turns around, it's boom, just out of nowhere. Like, you just don't see it. And then, and it's like, don't end there. Oh, it's ending there. No. But then why am I worried? I'm doing a whole 9-episode marathon. No, I'm just going back.
I am impressed with that. Like 9-episode marathon is pretty solid, man.
I'm just going through that chat now. Yeah, my sort of main one was just found out what happened to Eddie. Oof.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
bit where Eddie gets splatted is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing. I did enjoy that part.
It was very well done, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. I keep saying it's a good show.
Yeah.
I really.
How would you rate the scariness of it?
About it. Well, obviously it depends on the episode. As a whole, it was more tension throughout it than anything. So there's like the scene with after they've had the wine and she goes in, she sees the two kids like worried and stood up, and she's like, oh, Flora had a nightmare, and they're clearly trying to distract her for a few minutes. And in the background, you can see the lady just walking.
Yeah.
It's more that type of scary. That type of scary in that show. It's about seven maybe for that. And then actual jump scares and things like that, it's a bit less so. It's more the tension in the show. And as I say, you see ghosts everywhere. Like, the scariest bit with the ghosts, where I first really got to see the ones that aren't normal, that aren't like, main. I think it was a soldier and the vicar. When she's running up the stairs chasing after Flora in episode 7, you see both of them either side of the staircase, but it's kind of a blink and you'll miss it thing, and you'll see that and you'll be like, oh my God, that's creepy.
Well, I'm gonna have to watch a compilation video, because honestly, I missed so much. I think I saw the Plague Doctor once. I'm pretty sure I did once, and that was it. Because I was like, oh, hang on a minute, that's you.
I mean, another perfect example of the show rewarding people paying attention. I sort of have an ongoing debate with myself, because when I watch this with my fiance, it's like we would have a lot of go back a minute. I think I saw something. I was like, oh, am I ruining the show doing that?
I think that was
we'd keep going back and try and catch something.
I think I missed so much of it because I did it all in one go, and I did it over the course of the day, because obviously I was doing other stuff in between, so I was more listening to the show, which I think is why I've picked up like little bits of dialogue. And obviously, Haryan, you've sort of spread it over the course of the week, and so you've had more time to just sit down and focus on it. So you're catching all these other elements visually.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go back and just catch those bits again.
Yeah, it's rewarding for a rewatch, which isn't usually the case, I find, for horror. Just because when the jump scares are coming in, but this really isn't a show for jump scares. It has maybe 2 or 3 throughout the nine episodes.
Well, I think the most common jump scare is Eddie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess.
And you kind of get used to it after a while. I have to say, while I thought Bly Manor was a really good series, I was disappointed that his manifestation was a psychological one and not a spiritual one. I thought you could, because obviously the way I saw it would be, I think it would have been better. The lady in the lake traps everything in Bly Manor. Everything latches onto her. And I think it would have been, I think it would have been better for Eddie to have been latched spiritually or supernaturally onto Danny, and essentially she brings him to Bly Manor rather than just being a cope. Because that scene, because the thing in the end, in the end, obviously when Danny's getting like dragged by the lady in the lake, there could have been some sort of reward resolution if Eddie stepped in to protect Danny, even if he got his backside absolutely handed to him. Just the fact that even in the afterlife, okay, that's almost a sign of okay, yeah, you screwed me over right and royally here, love, but I forgive you, and I'd still want to protect you even though I'm not physically there.
Yeah,
almost sort of like a metaphor. Again, I wasn't a big fan of the ending, if I'm honest, but yeah,
fair enough. I thought it was good.
I wanted a spooky showdown. That's what I wanted. I wanted a spooky showdown.
I think that would have gone way against the tone of the show, personally.
Spooky showdown.
I mean, but you kind of did, I guess, with Peter taking Miles, but Beck's not doing it to Flora, and then obviously he gets really angry, and then you've got the Lady of the Lake, killing Henry, and then he gets CPR'd back to life.
Yeah, but that's not a spooky showdown.
Well, why not?
I think some other way around it. Like if you saw my commentary of it, I was not happy with how they resolved it. I like that. I like that Hannah tried to do something, and okay, we didn't have a good we didn't understand the rules enough to know whether it would work or not. So I kind of like that she tried it and it didn't work. But gosh darn it, at least she tried.
What was it she tried again? I can't remember.
She basically just stood in front of the ghost and
that's
tried
it.
to stand her ground.
And just and he just walked through
and then
her.
It didn't work. But she tried.
Yeah.
There's no reason she shouldn't have tried, and it did add to the feeling of, okay, the Lady of the Lake, she's powerful. So it built up her the sort of the status of her, made her a bigger threat. And it worked. One thing that worked really well is that it was working within the rules. So she's got Danny at that point, but then you realize she's going back in. And because you understand the scenario well, you realize you've got a little bit of time here. You understand a little more about how it works and how it's at stake. And so Danny's going to get dragged up and then dragged back out again.
Yeah. Although the fact that Danny didn't die as quickly as Peter did, because Peter was pretty much already dead by the time she was walking into the room. And bearing in mind, they were only on the landing at the time, whereas Peter was already dead because they were on the landing, but Danny, on the other hand, was outside of the house, so she had to go inside the house, up the stairs, past the landing, into the room, then back out, and she's still struggling and
yeah, it
should have put a Swiffer on her feet and done the cleaning while she was at it.
yeah.
I mean, no, that is true. It did take. It's weird. It seems to be that it's in the room that they get killed, I guess. Well, that's a bit of a cope from me, I think.
Yeah,
but it is inconsistent. Yes,
there is admirably a lot of time on character resolution in the final episode. Like, I did note that the main plot, the sort of the threat, the conflict, is resolved in about 14 minutes, and then it's 37 minutes of epilogue.
Yeah,
which is it's a bit much, but on the other hand, you're getting nice character resolution. It wasn't particularly tight, but I think it maybe was unbalanced. But isn't it kind of nice that if we're going to build characters up, we are going to try and care about them enough to resolve some of their arcs?
I didn't care.
That's fine.
I liked. Don't get me wrong. I liked the characters, but
was a bit much.
It was a bit much. It was a bit much.
Yeah, my main problems were that I would have liked them to try something, because, as I pointed out, Henry has a good reason to be at the house. It's just it is a writer's convenience that he is there that night.
Yeah.
They weren't. Henry being there wasn't the worst. The worst being there was Owen and what's she called? Owen and Jamie.
They were there
because they had a dream.
We both had this weird dream.
Oh yeah.
How?
That was the worst.
Surely you hand the script back at that point and just say
no. Write that better. Danny wanted a midnight snack, and so did Jamie.
Yeah, You can have what's she called? Hannah just call them. Well, that might not give them enough time because they're ages away from anywhere, aren't they?
Yeah.
It was forced. This is why I say, for all my problems sort of stem from the fact that the show has these wonderfully observed character details and wonderfully subtle bits and symbolism, and then it's like, oh crap! It's episode 9. It's the finale. Get everyone here now.
Yeah.
We had a weird dream, and he even says, you won't believe this, but we both had this weird dream. It's like, no, I don't believe it. There's been nothing in the show indicating that would happen. You've not shown.
Apart from because what's he called? Henry does have weird dreams, but again, that's more because of his premonition. So but it's just not established that either of those have it. So yeah, I'm like, nah, no.
Yeah, but with with Henry, of course, he's got the family ties and obviously the guilt associated with that. Whereas, with Jamie and Owen, they're just employees, really. When you break it down, there's no reason for them to. Unless they have obviously, creepy feelings about the house and whatnot. But yeah, they're just employees at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, of course, Jamie's solution, when they find out they can't physically stop, they can't overpower the Lady of the Lake, so they have to address what she wants. That's nice. That's a character motivated resolution, because if we're honest, in screenwriting terms, when it comes to a physical fight, you can pretty much arbitrarily make anyone stronger. But ignore that. It's not a cheap trick of writing at all. Don't worry about it. Turn your brain off. No, literally do. I'm being kind of snarky there, but it actually doesn't matter. Like, the fight is always symbolic of something. But when we're going for a character resolution here, that does ask you to have a character who's got more stuff going on. So I like that. However, I still have a problem that Danny has no way that she could know what to address. And that bugged me.
It's you, it's me, it's us. What?
Yeah, well, I mean, she knows to do that because of Peter and what's she called, Bex, doing it in front of her.
Yeah, but there's no indication that would have worked. I mean, it was more of a. It was a mutual.
Miles gets taken over. What do you mean?
Well, yeah, but it's a mutual agreement between the two of them. The Lady of the Lake has no interest in Danny right up until that moment when she says it.
And there's no way that, whilst the Lady of the Lake does have exposure to that phrase, it did not, of it's you, it's me, it's us, it did not mean the same to her when she encountered it as it does in the situation at the end. And also Danny doesn't know this. And I don't feel this is nitpicking, and this is still a good season. This is still a good series. But gosh darn it, the writing in this final episode. It's not Game of Thrones final episode bad, but there are some problems here.
And are you telling me as well that the Lady in the Lake would have forgotten her daughter? Because she does. She only knows that there should be a child in that bedroom. But she'll remember a one-liner.
Well, clearly she's acting on instinct more than anything. It's not that she remembers it; it's an instinct. Like, why is she taking a child? Like, why does she remember what she's going after anyway?
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, she knows it's some sort of child. Okay, well, she knows that she knows that phrase. It's more instinct than anything. And after 2 centuries, I can see that.
Yeah, the writing does say that, and it does allow, the writer has a sort of writerly way of saying, "Turn off your brain, bro. Just go with it," which is like. Danny did not know where the phrase came from, but she felt it in her gut. It's like, yes, she has no reason to say this, but it's like, it's cool. However, I want to fix this ending. I mean, we could have spooky ghost battle, and I'm
spooky
down
showdown.
I do want to I could have a spooky showdown. I could be down with that. I almost wondered if there's some kind of, there would have been a cool loophole ending. Like, if you somehow got the information that all she wants is Flora, you could kind of take the chance that she's going to take the kid into the lake, and it's almost like, okay, let her do that. Let her take Flora down with that, and just hope that once she's taken Flora down, you can then go after her. I mean, just picture that she does that, and it's looking hopeless, and Danny decides she's just got to try it. She's going to wade in after her. She's going to fight. She's going to do her best. She dives down as best she can. She sees Flora then down there, and then takes her out of the lake. You have a sort of, you can get a little jump scare in there. It's completely forgivable. But then the Lady of the Lake feels like she's completed it. She's got her kid back. And then they can get Flora back on shore and try and revive her.
I'd have a massive issue if Danny didn't try what she did, personally, because I would be asking, she at least knows that'd be a risk. It's worth a try to say the phrase, the ritual, to have the lady take her over, and she's faded, so she knows they fade as well because Peter told her, so she knows it won't be as harsh as Peter taking over Miles. So that's what I'd say. I
don't know, Haryan. I don't know.
Right.
Spooky showdown.
I don't know. I don't think a spooky showdown fits with the tone personally as all.
I mean, it doesn't have to be like a Transformers-esque battle to the death, but it could just be like a subtle, Eddie letting go of Danny to save her, while also stopping the lady in the lake. Just a simple like, oh, she's in the lake, and then he could pull them down, and then I don't know, Flora could just sort of like drift back, float back up, and they collect her, and essentially end it like that, I suppose. I'm spitballing here, but
no,
I just think it would have been more effective for Eddie to have been the one to let go, because he obviously had a gripe with Danny because they were going to get married. She's then just dropped this bombshell that actually, she's a lesbian, and obviously he gets out of the car and he gets splattered as a reaction to that. So naturally he's going to be a bit peeved.
Yeah, it was a lorry, but yeah, I know what you mean. I don't think that would work with what we are told in The Haunting of Bly Manor. There's no reason his spirit would have stayed, because we know the rest of them do because of the Lady of the Lake. She's the gravity for them.
Yeah.
So someone over in America randomly staying back, and it would be fairly random. I can't see that being the case. And these ghosts don't come about because of kind of people's feelings. They just come about because of the Lady in the Lake, who has that gravity well for the spirits. So.
But then this is almost like, again, if you're talking about sort of haunted lore, like hauntings, poltergeists, they can move with, they can latch on to a specific person. Who's to say that Eddie couldn't have just been a poltergeist and latched on to Danny?
Well, yeah, but then you need a whole bunch of more.
Do you?
You'll need episodes to explain that.
But do you really though? Just have them watch
considering the rest of the show, absolutely.
Just have them watch an episode of Poltergeist, and just have Eddie and just have Eddie in the background, in a reflection somewhere, just sort of subtly nodding, like, yeah, that's me.
Legit.
Yeah,
these guys know what they're talking
this works.
About.
Yeah.
I can't agree with. Watch a completely different film to explain it. It doesn't make any sense.
Right, we'll get a spin-off then. We'll get a spin-off. The Haunting of Eddie's Glasses. Because they were there in Bly Manor.
You are mental.
I am mental.
I'm completely wrong.
I like that the Eddie thing was resolved, because so many of the hauntings are like clearly about they are psychological manifestations, and like this is kind of true to the original novels, that they play a lot more subtly about, was this genuinely a haunting or was this a psychological phenomenon? And you got two examples in this season where you have someone's psychological manifestation being effectively a haunting. But for me, I kind of like that Danny does resolve hers in a sort of melancholic way. She does manage it by chucking the glasses in the bonfire. She does effectively lay that to rest.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
But I think it's a cute scene, and it's underplayed. It's subtle. It's mournful. It's melancholy. It's mature. Like she's not exactly. I took a long time to find her likable.
Danny, do you mean?
Yeah, sorry, to find Danny likable. I was Team Jamie, loving Hannah. Owen is just pure gold. I mean, he's dropping puns like a madman. It's, I love that.
Owen was probably my favourite character. I still, Henry had the best accent, but Owen was my favourite character, I have to say. Yeah.
Well, as I said, I like all the characters. In terms of favourite, I like Peter quite a lot. He's like the man I love to hate.
Yeah.
Definitely. Hannah, again, really good. Owen I love because of the jokes. I mean, he was comic relief, but he also had one of the deepest character arcs with his mum. And you never meet his mum as well, which is, that. I mean, they could have played that off like you see him like with his mum with dementia, but instead they have him tell everyone the story, and that's a lot more You know, I think that hits a lot better than having him, because you'd have to establish over like a few episodes that his mum, with like a bit of backstory, that his mum can remember him and things like that, and then kind of devolves over time. But no, they just tell it in a few minutes instead, which I think is really good.
Yeah, I know a lot of things that you hear sort of like from this sort of side of like YouTube. You get a lot of people that sort of criticize the tell don't show. You know, just think of Star Wars for one example. You know, people are telling you how amazing Rey is, for example, and how it would be better to show. The Owen character arc with his mother was a fantastic example of tell don't show. You didn't need to see the I want to say torment that was going through with him internally, having to deal with his mother's illness while at the same time using his, you know, little quirky humor almost as a coping mechanism. You could tell that behind that man's eyes there was a lot of pain, and it all came out while they were, you know, giving eulogies over the fire. You see that, and
gorgeous scene.
I mean, it was really good.
I would happily have. Maybe I'm asking for trouble, but I'd happily have another episode to fill that out. Because I mean, I was a lot more interested in the Hannah and Owen relationship than the Jamie Danny one.
Oh, me too.
And I just it was a lot more complex for me, and I loved it because of that.
Yeah, when it hit me that she died, and I'm like, oh, she loves Owen. Oh no, it's like, yeah, you really feel for her. Also, another detail we've not pointed out about Hannah: she never eats or drinks unless she's in her own dream. You know, in episode 5, she's drinking the wine because she's in her own dream. The rest of the time, she never eats or drinks.
That's right. Oh yeah.
And I was asking the whole time why.
But what? Hang on. In episode 4, doesn't she drink when they're around the fire?
No. She's not drinking there. You never actually see her take a sip until episode 5 in a dream.
Isn't she sort of standing to the side, I think? And then it's when it's when she's going when she's tucked into her memory. That's when she picks up the bottle and starts boozing with Owen. Like even that episode when Hannah was going through her own memories. My favourite ones were the scenes where she was sitting there interviewing Owen for the the chef role. Just the dialogue and the chemistry between those two was fantastic.
Yeah, that was it's just a whole powerful episode. Especially because the start of that episode, the transitions between her memories are quite subtle. It'll be like a door knocking or a bell ringing or something. Yeah. And then in one, she just breaks her neck and it changes, and it's like, Jesus, what the hell was that? And it built up to that until the memory, where she gets actually pushed down the well. And obviously she's seen the crack throughout as well at the bottom of the well. Yeah, really well done episode. I've not heard anyone say episode 5's bad yet.
I said it had flaws. I said it borrowed ideas. I didn't say it was bad. I said it had some issues.
Well, but I say Haunting of Bly Manor is one of the best shows I've seen in my life, and it's it's still got flaws. I'm agreeing with like the last episode being a bit tismy. So yeah,
I love that you say this. This makes me really happy. It does. Why? Like the whole thing I do this is like I feel horror's underrated, and people maybe won't give it a chance, and deservedly there's some bad stuff out there. But I like to feel that I can get people having a look at things and seeing things they wouldn't have tried out. It's a good time too, because especially things like Haunting of Bly Manor, we're seeing a lot more mature horror, seeing deeper stuff. Like I love that there are deeper emotions in this, and like the whole loss and torment and the sorrow. There's so much sadness going through this show, and that only works because you've got characters who are well sketched out and who you care about.
Yeah, definitely. One of the main themes of this is grief. Just how do you deal with grief? I mean, the lady of the lake was so much in grief that she literally turned into a spirit and made other people turn into spirits because of how pissed off she was, basically. Yeah. And then you've got Owen, how's he dealing with grief? Oh, he's making jokes and trying to be positive for everyone else. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
And you had Hannah, denial.
Yep.
You had Danny, remorse, I suppose. Refusal to let go.
Yeah.
She locks it all up, and then she kind of accepts it, and deals with it, and she does have to let go. But then she's kind of complex because absolutely the Lady of the Lake, Viola Wingrave, she is representing pure, overwhelming, all-consuming, life-ruining grief. And then Danny sort of, the solution at the end is Danny takes her in, she absorbs her. So like symbolically, what is that? Is that like you have to come to terms with this?
You have to learn
this
to live
unbearable
with it.
thing.
You have to learn to
and
live
you might
with it.
be able to manage it, but it might also get the better of you one day. I mean, I don't know how to interpret that as much.
Tricky.
I'm going to be honest, we're not going to have as deep a symbolic discussion when we cover the human centipede.
You sure?
Imagine my shock.
What does the middle centipede represent of the three?
I mean, that if we, well,
the merchant class?
Not if.
I don't know.
Not if, but when we go through that is just going to be a piss take, isn't it?
I like it. I mean, look, I may have been like, oh God, Harry, and I can't believe you're excusing this terrible line. But I'm going to be the person being like, come on, human centipede, 3 out of 5 at least.
I'm just reminded of the South Park spoof when they covered that. And the guy...
human centipede,
yeah.
Oh no! Here it comes.
Oh God.
I'm feeling terrible. Like okay, we're.
Are we off topic?
No, it's cool. It's cool. Like,
yeah.
From what I know, we are not getting a 3rd season. It's kind of a shame. However, it's the kind of thing that they could come back to. They aren't in a rush to just, produce a new season each year. They could end up taking a couple of years break and then do a 3rd season. I would rather they did that and just like wait until they have the right idea.
Yeah. It would be bad if they tried to rush it out, and then obviously don't take the time that I feel like a show like this needs, because if you effectively take the like the Call of Duty or FIFA route and try and pump one of these out every year, then you're going to sacrifice things like the character development, and Bly Manor did it so well, I have to say. I mean, a lot of shows nowadays, character development is something that tends to get put to the side in favor of, special effects and just, fancy visuals. But this really focused on the actual characters. And for the first time in a long time, I think I've actually watched a show where I could empathize with some of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as rare nowadays, but you have got a villain you can sympathize with. Like, Peter Quint is a damaged individual. I pointed out in my reviews, but for people who haven't seen that, this is the whole thing with Peter Quint and his history is one of the show's best metaphors, best uses of symbolism, because upsetting topic coming up here. Peter Quint is someone who was abused as a child, and his scheme is going to end up abusing another child. And to really spell that metaphor out, this is someone who, as a child, had an adult take over his body for their own ends, and now as an adult, he is going to be trying to take over a child's body for his own ends. This is a sort of the cycle of abuse thing. It's spelled out, but you don't get a lot of the horrific details. You get enough to know it was bad. And you get a very solid metaphor that just a really solid, nicely done bit of symbolism. And it's one of the ones that they don't sledgehammer, they don't spell out.
They didn't need to. They just, it was brilliantly written and played out.
Yeah, I didn't see as many people pick up on that, and I thought that was really nicely done.
It's about Peter, sorry.
Yeah, this is about Peter, the sort of the symbolism behind him and him being essentially a cycle of abuse character, because I mean, I just laid it out that effectively, as a child, he had an adult use his body for their own pleasure, their own motives, and now he's an adult and he needs to use a child's body for his purpose. So he needs to take over Miles. Again, it's disturbing symbolism, but it's quite cleverly done.
Yeah, it's subtle as well, because I didn't quite pick up on that theme, but it is there definitely.
All right, not many people picked up on it. I didn't. I actually haven't seen another reviewer pick up on that one.
Right.
I mean, this is you need to. I'm probably going to watch this again sometime soon. It's there's a lot I didn't pick up on, and I want to see all the ghosts in the background.
It's cool. And the actor for Peter Quint, whose name I'm afraid is escaping me at the moment.
Oliver Jackson
Cohen, yeah, that's it. Thank you. He is in The Haunting of Hill House, and he's brilliant there as well.
Okay, I have a question, because I noticed that because I was looking up the IMDb cast and I saw that he was in Hill House. Is he? I'm assuming he's a different character in this.
Completely different character. As far as I know, there is no overlap whatsoever. I didn't even catch any references crossing over the series.
Right. Okay.
But it's a reused cast basically. Mike Flanagan, the director and creator, really likes to do this.
Right.
He loves reusing actors.
It's just interesting that this would be essentially a second season. The Haunting of Bly Manor would be a second season, and yet they would have the same person play two different characters in what you would assume would be the same universe.
Yes, I mean we can quibble about whether the ghosts work the same, and I have in my reviews, but there's no need for it here. I think you will find it works very well, I assume. I mean, I didn't actually realize that Danny, so basically the main character in this, I didn't realize she was also in Hill House as the main character, because she had changed her hair color.
There you go.
I'm not good at recognizing faces.
Nice.
Neither is Brad Pitt.
Was she a homosexual in that as well?
No, but I don't know if I should say it really.
No, don't spoil. I'm not seeing. I really want to see it.
No, that character is different, and I believe it is played by the director's wife. There's sort of a Len Wiseman thing here. Len Wiseman was the director of the Underworld series and also married to Kate Beckinsale. And I'll leave that thread there, and you can have a little thought about that in your own time. But yes, as I was saying, we do not have a third season on the books, but if and when they come up with the right story, I would really welcome it. The director, Mike Flanagan, that is working on a new series called Black Mass. I really hope I've got that right. I think it's Black Mass. Anyway, he's working on a new horror series with Netflix at the moment, so we are going to get something else from him. And I think we can probably expect something pretty high quality. However, before that, I guess I have a question to you both. Can I assume you're going to watch The Haunting of Hill House now?
Yes.
Yes, I'm wondering, are you going to make it homework one of these times?
Could we do that? Could we do that? It's not on the list. I'm going to leave it a little bit of time, I think, before setting like another horror series. But I will announce the horror homework for the next week's stream probably tomorrow is when I like to do it, when I can get the image together, but I will give people plenty of time. I think that's working out for folks. But for now, do you have any closing thoughts on The Haunting of Bly Manor? Haryan, would you like to start if you've got something?
Watch this show. It's as I say, it is probably one of the best TV series I've ever seen. Plot threads go right the way through. They all, in the end, lead up to something that I think is a good climax for each plot thread. As we said, last episode has a bit of contrivance and stuff that just comes out of nowhere, but generally the rest of it is all just, oh, that's why this happened. Oh, that's how he can do that. Oh, that's why the kids are acting weird. Oh, this is why this ghost appears. It's just things like that. It's all answered if you pay attention, basically. And it really respects your intelligence, and horror that respects your intelligence tends to be my favourites. So that's a good roundup, I think.
Nice. Oh, makes me so happy. Teabag?
Yeah, definitely recommend this. Haunting of Bly Manor. Very well written, very good cast, great chemistry. Like Haryan said, you know, the storyline is solid. Episode 9 was probably, I would consider to be the most flawed episode, which I stand by my claim that a spooky showdown would have resolved all of the issues. But other than that, definitely give this a watch if you haven't already. And I'm going to check out the Hill House one.
That's a solid choice. I mean, I was just so happy. Like they released a trailer for this, and they had a sort of souped up epic version of a kind of lullaby song that's in the original adaptation, The Innocents. It's called "Oh Willow Whaley."
Yes,
and it was so good. I used it in the intro of every review I did of it, but it just gave me a good feeling. Anyway, yeah, that's positive recommendations from us all around. This is intelligent, deep horror. It is not flawless, and I get very nitpicky, but it's kind of good when you're picking nits and not just like shooting down whole concepts.
Yeah, though, comparing it, say, to Alive, there were things in that were just like, this ruins it. In Bly Manor, there's nothing really like that. But again, we had a dream and we turned up. That's probably the worst issue that I could find. And if that's literally it, fine. That's like 8, 9 out of 10.
I mean, put it this way, right? Laurie Penny was on board with this show, and Haryan's giving it an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10.
I didn't even know she was involved with it.
There you go.
I mean, the woke aspect is a whole other issue that I know. I think we probably won't get into. I covered it in my videos. It's not.
I'll touch on that very briefly. There are moments of that in this show, no doubt. But then again, you'd expect that with most shows nowadays. But it does, in my view, it does nothing to detract from the main story. It's not something that's that consumes the story in any way. They'll make a subtle reference to it. Like, for example, Rebecca, the reason why she's an au pair at Bly Manor is because she wants to become a barrister, I believe, but she wants to do it in a way where the men aren't, feeling her up and all that stuff, sort of like the tropes of women, especially women of color, as they'd have you believe. Move, their way to get, their way to succeed is to sleep their way to the top, and she doesn't want to do that. She wants to do it the strong, independent woman way. But her character's believable in that approach. She sounds wise to it. It's not something that's just shoehorned in. It fits.
Yeah. I think that for me, the wokest stuff is the perspectives in episode 8 that are just completely anachronistic. But generally, it's more like you can notice the stuff, but it won't derail it. It's more like the totality of it. And because it is there, it's not like one major thing that you can't ignore. It's more like a lot of individual decisions, and then at that point it's like you can let it annoy you, or you can be like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm not sure if I explained that well.
No, you did. It's just there are little subtle references that do appear semi regularly, but it's not enough to take away from the main. It's not enough to leave you with the main takeaway that this is actually some sort of woke garbage. It's not at all. It is a complex story, and of course, some people are going to put messages in there. You kind of expect it, but it's not something that consumes or takes over the show. You'll hear it if you're in those sorts of circles. You're attuned to that sort of stuff. You hear it, but it's not something that makes you go, "Oh, I can't be bothered with this now." it's a shrug of the shoulders and carry on, as if it never happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. You can notice it, but it doesn't derail the story and it doesn't drive the story. It doesn't hijack it, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is still a full recommendation. As I said, horror homework announcement will likely be tomorrow, but I'd like to thank everyone who's watched, whether live or on the catch-up. In terms of CPU news, I have none. I have no news, and I still have no CPU. But I don't know when that is going to change. But happily, we do still have these weekly live streams. And we'll be on at the same time, 8 p.m. next Tuesday. I will leave it to Haryan and Teabag to sign off. And obviously, I know, Teabag, I hear you've got some really interesting true crime content. I don't know where I heard that.
No, I don't know where you heard that either. I keep that under wraps.
I heard it mentioned on Short Fat Ataki's stream. Actually.
Yes, I even convinced Sargon to check it out. So let's see if he actually does. Probably not. I had to pay Dev to say that. I'm not even joking. But yeah,
I think I'm going to use that technique though. I admire it.
But yeah, if you haven't already, check out my channel, the Teabag Who Laughs. I'm considering a small rebrand, just to fit with the theme. But more to come on that. But yeah, essentially, I cover true crime stories. I also do a little bit of gaming on Monday evenings with a fellow called Zen. Where we cover, we're currently playing CSI Deadly Intent at the moment, just finished the second case. So if you want to pop by and have a chat with me there, then feel free to jump in. Also, I feel like it needs to be said, because no stream that we do here can't have it go unmentioned. Obligatory Scream reference mention.
Kevin Williamson wrote Scream in 1996 following his production of the show Dawson's Creek.
There we
go.
Nice.
Crikey, we nearly went a whole episode without it. Scary.
About that.
Yeah. Ooh.
Oh,
So yeah, I'll hand it to you, Haryan.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not Zen. Jesus.
No, you're not. No. You're not.
It's going to get worse. Zen is going to be on the stream soon.
Oh, nice.
good.
Nice. He's fun to talk to. He has very tismy takes.
Nice.
But yeah, he's
a good
fun
lad
to talk to. Yeah. So for me, released a video today talked about that David Lammy interview chat that he had with that woman saying he's not English. It's from a right-wing perspective. That's all I'll say. I didn't manage to finish Soma last weekend. Not going to be able to do it this weekend because it's Easter, obviously, but I do need to finish it at some point. I'll make videos on what annoy me in the week. Don't know what that'll be. It's a surprise. I also have a second gaming channel that I can't pronounce the name of, but if you want to see that, just follow me on Twitter. I'll basically release whenever I'm going to be streaming on that. But that's all. Yeah. Thanks for having me on again.
It's a pleasure as always, and I'm just chuffed that you guys managed to watch our whole TV season. Like, kudos, frankly, kudos. All right, and yeah, that is us for this week. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks, y'all.